Introduction to IELTS Writing Task 1. IELTS Writing Task 1 challenges participants to write a summary, report, or essay based on graphical data such as line graphs, bar charts, and pie charts. The task requires a concise, structured response of approximately 150 words to be completed within 20 minutes. This component assesses the ability to describe and interpret visual information clearly and accurately using an academic tone, objectives for students, graph understanding and interpretation, quickly grasp and accurately interpret the data presented in the graph, description of overall trends, efficiently identify and articulate the main trends, employing varied vocabulary to enhance readability and avoid redundancy. Combination of data points. Integrate multiple data points into a cohesive analysis that succinctly conveys the information. Avoidance of redundancy. Focus on eliminating repetitive phrasing to maintain academic rigor and conciseness in the response. Vocabulary enhancement. Expand vocabulary to precisely and effectively describe data trends, crucial for the clarity and accuracy of the narrative. Key skills in IELTS Writing Task 1. Clear data description. Articulate key data trends and comparisons clearly, which is essential for crafting a well-structured response. Logical data integration. Combine information from the graph into comprehensive statements that reflect an understanding of the graph's content and context. Enhanced academic tone. Use precise language and varied sentence structures to uphold an academic tone throughout the essay. Cohesive linking. Employ transitional phrases to connect different sections of data smoothly, ensuring the essay flows logically from one point to another. Effective writing strategies. Logical sequencing. Arrange information in a logical order to maintain flow and coherence. Diverse vocabulary. Use a range of terms and synonyms to describe trends, avoiding the overuse of any single word or phrase. Consistent formatting. Maintain a consistent format when describing changes over time, making the essay easy to follow. Detail and precision. Include detailed descriptions with precise data points to effectively summarize and analyze the graphical information.
To help you prepare adequately, we have designed exercises to make you proficient and skillful, so that you can succinctly and accurately interpret the graphical data and write 150-word essay within the given time frame for IELTS Writing Task 1. Solve these exercises first and then check your responses with given answers and explanations.
Here's the revised set of answers and explanations based on the graph. 1. In 1982, the recycling rate for aluminum cans was only 5%. Explanation. The green line representing aluminum cans begins at the very bottom of the graph in 1982, indicating a recycling rate of 5%. This marks the lowest point for aluminum cans throughout the entire period. 2. By 2010, the recycling rate for paper and cardboard had decreased slightly to 70%. Explanation. The blue line for paper and cardboard ends just above the 70% mark in 2010. While the recycling rate peaked earlier in the period, it declined slightly before stabilizing at around 70%. 3. The recycling rate for glass containers in 1990 was at its lowest, at 40%. Explanation. The red line, representing glass containers, reaches its lowest point at 40% in 1990. Afterward, the recycling rate began to rise, showing improvement by 1994. 4. Plastics saw the least improvement, ending at around 10% in 2010. Explanation. The purple line for plastics ends slightly above 10% in 2010. From 1982 to 2010, the recycling rate for plastics shows minimal growth, making it the material with the least progress during this period. 5. The material with the most significant increase in recycling rates was aluminum cans. Explanation. The green line for aluminum cans shows a sharp rise, increasing from 5% in 1982 to nearly 70% in 2010. This substantial growth highlights aluminum cans as the material with the greatest improvement in recycling rates. These explanations now correctly reflect the trends shown in the graph. Here is the corrected set of answers and explanations. DOS 6 represents recycling rate for glass containers. Answer: D. Glass containers. Explanation: the line representing glass containers shows a fluctuating trend over time, as indicated in the graph, and is identified as such in the key. 7 shows a fluctuating trend but ends higher. D. Glass containers. Explanation: the recycling rate for glass containers fluctuates significantly throughout the period, but ends at a higher rate compared to its starting point, which accurately describes the trend. Started at the lowest rate, but improved significantly. Answer: A. Aluminum cans. Explanation: the line for aluminum cans begins at the lowest rate among all materials, at just 5%. But exhibits the most dramatic improvement, reaching nearly 70% by the end of the period. And 9. Experienced a low in the mid-1990s before increasing. Answer: D. Glass containers. Explanation: the line for glass containers dips to its lowest point in the mid-1990s, around 40%, before beginning to rise again, showing improvement through the late 1990s and into 2010. 10. Remained almost flat throughout the period. Answer C. Plastics. Explanation: the line for plastics shows minimal change, starting at around 5% and only slightly improving to about 10% by 2010. This nearly flat trend highlights the minimal progress made in recycling plastics during this period. Hash 11. Aluminum recycling rate reached 45%. Correct answer: B. 2006. Explanation: the green line for aluminum cans crosses the 45% mark around 2006, indicating that this was the year aluminum recycling rates reached this level. 12. Glass recycling rate was at its peak. C. 2010. Explanation: the red line for glass containers reaches its peak at nearly 50% in 2010, marking the highest recycling rate for glass containers during the period. 13. Paper and cardboard recycling saw a slight decrease from its highest point. Correct answer: D. 2010. Explanation: the blue line for paper and cardboard peaks at nearly 80% in the mid-1990s, but declines slightly by 2010, stabilizing at around 70%. Plastics did not show substantial improvement, ending the period near 10%. Correct intent. Explanation: The purple line for plastics remains mostly flat throughout the period, starting at about 5% and improving only slightly to just over 10% in 2010, showing minimal progress. 15. The highest recorded rate for any material in the graph. Correct answer, 1994. Explanation. The blue line for paper and cardboard reaches its peak at nearly 80% in 1994, which is the highest recycling rate recorded for any material in the graph.
After finishing these exercises, listen to the audio for the same graph and write an essay of about 150 words.
The line graph illustrates the recycling rates for 4 different materials: paper and cardboard, glass containers, aluminum cans, and plastics from 1982 to 2010. Overall, recycling rates for paper and cardboard and aluminum showed significant improvement over the years. Paper and cardboard recycling started at about 65%, peaking at 80%, then settling back to around 70% by 2010. Aluminum showed the most dramatic rise from a mere 5% in 1982 to 45% by 2010, reflecting substantial progress in recycling efforts. In contrast, glass containers exhibited a fluctuating trend, starting at 50%, dipping to 40%, and recovering to 60% by the end of the period, indicating a volatile but ultimately positive trend. Plastics, however, had the least growth, starting and ending at around 5% and 10% respectively, showing minimal improvement. This data highlights the varied success in recycling efforts across different materials, with significant gains in most except for plastics, which lag behind in recycling rates. The graph emphasizes the ongoing challenges and progress in recycling practices over nearly 3 decades.